Welcome to Surrendering to the Signs. I'm your host, Laura Gates. Today I'm joined by Maria Medrano, who I have had the honor and privilege of working with as a client, as her coach, and now we are friends and co-conspirators in what we're trying to create in the world, encouraging each other and pushing each other forward. And I'm excited to have Maria, you on the call with us today, and can't wait to share your story with our audience. If you could just take a moment to share a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and then we'll get into your story.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to be here. Maria Medrano is my name, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Inspirame. For those that don't speak Spanish, Inspirame stands for Inspire Me in Spanish. I'd like to introduce myself as a first generation pioneer, pirate, warrior, fill in the blank, because I am very, very, very aware of my position in this world, where I've started and where I've gone. And I bring an immense amount of experience spending the last 20 years in the tech sector, bringing more clarity and insight to the work that we bring to Inspirame. We're just committed to ensuring that we can first expose our communities to the reality of all of the pathways that are available for career and life progression. And then we look to simplify those pathways by ensuring that individuals across our community understand all of the affordable pathways that exist from a higher education perspective. I think that when I think about my journey, I took the path of going on to higher education. And then you couple that with entering a corporate field focused on technology. Well, that was an accelerator for me. And so that is something that you'll hear through and through my story, because I anchor very much around the importance of education and then what technology can do to really accelerate and unlock that value. And so that is the world that I sit in every single day.
And we're talking to you from the heart of Silicon Valley, where you work as an executive. But today we're really going to focus on you as a human and everything that brought you to this point in life. And I know in talking to you and hearing your story that you've been able to overcome many obstacles. And as you know, part of the path here that you and I are on a thread of conversation about is this aspect of the larger universe at work and how it's guiding us and sending us messages, how our loved ones who've passed on are cheering us on from the other side and may also be sending us signs and messages. And so I'd just love for you to share with us sort of your beginnings and the twists and turns along the way.
Yes, I love my beginning. So thank you for asking, Laura. I was born in San Francisco, California. I was born to two amazing human beings. My mom was a 16-year-old, just amazing human that actually became an orphan at the age of 3. And I share those details because all of those moments I think about in life are like chess pieces. Everything matters, right? And so the fact that she was, left with no parents at the age of 3, when she had me at 16, even though most are like, oh, she's so young, she wasn't ready to be a mom, I can tell you she was the best mom in the whole entire world, because there was never a moment that I doubted her love and her support, so much so that she made it very clear that because I had a mom and a dad, and I was born here in this country of the United States, that I could do and become whatever I wanted to become. My dad, on the other hand, although he was born in Mexico, was one of 13 children. My grandfather was always working this side and going back to Mexico to provide for the family. And my dad was in the middle of the pack, meaning that he was raised much so by his older siblings. And so I mention that detail because even though my mom was 16 and my dad was 19 when they had me, my earliest memories of both of my parents was as a 4-year-old. At that point, they were super young. And I think back now, I think, oh my gosh, they would have been teenagers just wanting to have a good time. But my mom and my dad were dedicated parents. Like, they were parents at home, and they were both so opposite from one another. And so I look back to my own experience and realize that I was given this gift from the minute that I was brought into this earth, where I had this mom who I saw as a warrior, who was 16, born on this side, right? She was born in the US, but because she was an orphan, she was bounced around amongst a lot of different family members. And so it wasn't until around the age of 8 where she landed in San Francisco and then stayed in San Francisco. And so in her mind, she was a Chicana, as we say, a Mexican American. Like she knew that she had rights. She didn't know what rights, but she knew she had some. And as she would always tell me, I knew I had to go to school. I didn't like it and it wasn't for me, but I went. But she didn't really apply herself because there was no one truly guiding her in that sense. And then my dad, who was born in Mexico, small little ranch, Las Animas, Zacatecas. Tiny, tiny ranch, no running water, no infrastructure, very humble beginnings. But my dad loved to go to school. If he could have gone to school, he would have, but he could only go to sixth grade because at that point you had to go to another town, and my grandparents couldn't afford for him to go to another town. But my dad comes here to the United States, meets my mom, loves to read, loves music, understands the importance of education. And I tell that story often because I always grew up in this household of duality, of understanding it, where my mom was very much about you work hard and you go to school. You're going to go to this place called college. I don't know how you're going to get there or how you get there, but I know you'll figure it out. And my dad was very much about the spiritual aspect. Respect yourself, respect the family, respect your elders, ritual, customs, and trusting me to say, okay, well, if you're going to go to school, but make sure when you come home, you take care of what you need to take care of at home, washing the dishes, cleaning the house, all of the roles that he was accustomed to a young girl taking care of, because that's what you do. But it was never in this harshness of, you can't go do that, you can't do this. If anything, I felt like he always very much supported any of my ideas. And so, with that being said, I ended up being the first in my family to graduate high school. Now, get my mom did graduate high school. My mom graduated high school. I was 2.5 in the audience, and she was 6 months pregnant of my brother. And so it was not, she had to go to continuation high school. It was not a traditional high school. I had the opportunity to go to high school and actually have the traditional high school lifestyle, as they say, where I went to school. I worked as a teenager, a small little internship, teachers that guided me along the way. Teachers were my heroes from my earliest memories. There was never a moment that a teacher was not saying, you can do this, you have what it takes. And having that reinforced at home was a huge game changer for me. And so everyone growing up heard that Nina, that was my nickname at home. Nina's going to be a teacher because from a young age, everyone would ask, what are you going to do when you grow up? Well, I'm going to be a teacher because that's all I would see in my neighborhood. And so it was by no surprise, by the time I got to high school, I was very adamant about I'm going to become a teacher, that I was given these opportunities to go teach at schools. And in my mind, it was teaching, but it really was just helping teachers make sure kids were, standing in line straight. But in my mind, it was always, I'm a teacher, right? And I think often to even our conversations, Laura, of like just having that mind share of like, and show up in the way that you want to become. And so I was always very applied in that way. Um, I ended up being the first to go to college. That was thankfully because I said I wanted to be a teacher, that the school actually asked me to be part of this teacher cadet program in the high school system, which at the time I didn't know was an actual dual enrollment program, meaning that I was getting class credit there in the high school, but I was actually getting units at Sonoma State University, which was about 45 minutes away from my high school. When I was completing high school, I received a letter from Sonoma State saying, congratulations, you have been admitted to Sonoma State. By that point, I had about 10 units. It was a 4.0, 10 units into the university. Now, there were some conditions. The conditions were that I had to finish my math class, I had to finish my biology class, and I had to start 2 weeks before every other student started through this program called EOP, because they wanted me to be there 2 weeks ahead of time. And I'll share more why in a second there, because that's following the path. There was definitely something there that was very connected. But what I'll say is, when I got that letter, I was so excited. Imagine this. I got a letter, the college letter, and I'm like, I have a college letter. No one in my family had ever seen one, touched one, or read one whatsoever. And I remember my mom was still at work because this was probably about 3:30, 4 o'clock, and she didn't get home until about 6 p.m. My dad worked the night shift. And so I wouldn't see him until the morning. And I thought, I got to tell someone. So I remember jumping in my little car and driving back to the high school to find my high school counselor to show her, like, I got this letter. And I remember she was still in her office. I knock on her door. She says, come on in. I show her the letter, she reads it, and she looks at me and I remember puts her glasses down and says, well, you still got to pass your math class and biology class. I don't know how well you're doing there. So it's still a long shot that you're going to go to college. I remember my heart just dropping like, in my mind thinking, you're supposed to be excited for me. And so, as with anything, I remember taking the letter back and thinking, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to go to college. And so I think that is one thing
This is the beginning of a theme.
in my mind. This is the beginning of a theme. And the reason why I remember thinking that was because I remember my mom's voice always in my head about don't ever let anyone tell you what you can or can't do. And my dad would tell me the same thing. It's like, don't ever let anyone tell you. Like that is, you can do whatever you want to do. And my dad would always say, as long as it's to contribute to this world in a good way, that is your one thing. If it's not, then just let it go because maybe it's not meant for you. Of course, I finished the class. Did go and I started Cinema State 2 weeks before. And I remember my dad telling me, what are you doing? And I said, Dad, I have to move. And I remember him looking at me because he saw me in my room with the box, folding up some clothes. And he goes, what do you mean move? So remember that letter that I showed you? Because again, my dad didn't really understand. My mom kind of understood, like she knew I was going to college, but it never had happened in any of in our households. And so when I told my dad, that means I have to actually go live on campus, but I'll come back on the weekends to visit. I remember him taking kind of a pause and saying, okay, you can go, but he still wasn't quite convinced. A month later, because I was packing apart about a month before I had to go because I had to be prepared, right? Just kind of get everything situated. It was that day we got in the car, put stuff in the car to go to the college, and my mom just had a complete breakdown. I mean, I hadn't seen her cry and wail like this since she had lost family members. It was one of those things where my heart broke because she was so devastated about the fact that because we're partners in life. I mean, we helped each other so many more ways than I ever understood at that moment. Obviously now I can truly understand. I mean, like I was there, I helped her cook and clean and take care of the kid. I worked to be able to contribute to the family, and so for her, it was this weight of me being now in college. But I remember just looking at her and being like, it's gonna be okay. Like I'm here because it's gonna help us even more so. And both of my parents took off. They could only stay, was the rule. Parents could only be there for a half a day of the first day. What I didn't realize at the time is that there was about 60 of us that had to start school 2 weeks before because we were all first in our families to go to college. And so they were preparing us for how do you survive this place? Because we had no clue. I had no clue what to expect there. I just knew I had to take classes and I had to go to class and no one was going to be looking for me. Like I had to be responsible. Like that's the gist of what I knew about going to this place called college. Parents leave, would move us into a room and they basically tell us there's 60 of you here. Of all 60 of you, only 4 will complete. The rest of you will not.
Oh my gosh.
Will you be one of the 4? And I remember thinking in my head, like, I'm getting done. I don't care what I do. I'm going to finish school. But it was the hardest year of my life. The first 3 weeks, I cried every single night to go to bed. And the only thing that kept me grounded was my faith and just that the whole aspect of just, okay, remembering why am I here? Why am I here? And really ensuring that I remember not to take anything for granted because my mom and dad would have sure loved to have been there. They would have sure loved to, I could say at least my dad. My mom would have loved to have been there just for the social scene. My dad would have loved to have been at school. And I'm thinking, and they can't. So I cannot not make the most of this opportunity. And so I did. And there were plenty of times that I was in class and there would be students that would, that would kind of push me or, kind of shove me in the shoulder and be like, what are you doing in here? You don't belong in this class. Or why are you in this? Why are you studying this? Your people don't go to college. Like they were very mean people. There was one class in specific where we were having a debate about, supporting and social service and ensuring that people had access and having the conversation. And this is one thing about me, Laura, that I've never felt shame about the reality of The fact that my parents were very young when they had me, that, that we had to ask, we had to apply for food stamps, we had to stand in line to get food at times, but it was never of shame. It was always like, okay, we have to nourish our bodies. If we nourish our bodies, then we're able to do good and contribute. So it was always about appreciate the help now, but I'll get you back later. Like this is to like help me be able to come back and contribute. And so that's always been my mindset, that I remember we're having the conversation. That's what I shared in the discussion with the teacher. And the teacher was like, that's such a great perspective. And then everyone in the class, that's not real. All they do is come here, they deplete our resources, and just the whole negative spin to it. That I remember thinking, like, oh my gosh, they really don't want me here. But again, it was that mind of like, I don't care. Like I'm gonna stay here. And I remember walking out of that class. It was one of the last ones because it was very heavy. And I remember walking out of that class and the teacher stopping me and saying, Maria, 1 second. And I go, sure. And I thought, okay, she's not gonna be happy because I started that conversation. Because I just want you to know that what you said in there was very powerful. And you need to remember that you have a voice, and always use your voice in whatever room you're in. And I thought, okay, that was the beginning of it. And so Sonoma State. I was there for 2 years, then transferred to San Jose State, and transferred to San Jose State because I realized I couldn't become a teacher, because teachers' classes were only offered in the daytime, 8 to 3. And I had to work full time, 8 to 5. And so I quickly learned that the only way that I could continue to stay in college was if I studied something that was offered at nighttime. And at that time, only thing that they were teaching were business and engineering. I knew business because I worked since I was 13, so I knew the importance of working and money, and that's what I thought business was it. And engineering was so foreign, so I said I'm going to do the business route, and that's what took me to San Jose State, and that's really where my life truly changed in regards to just understanding technology and so much more. I'll just say, Laura, that the San Jose was one of the scariest pieces as well, but that's where the corporate world was at. And that's where I kind of stepped in to just really learn whatever I needed to learn to provide. I think that was my biggest motivation. And people ask me all the time, like, what motivated you to just keep going? I'm like, the curiosity of just doing what's on the other side. What's on the other side? Like, I knew how hard it was to be at home with my family. And it's not because my family were difficult to deal with. No, I was exhausted about the same conversations. Will we have enough for rent? Do we have enough to pay for the car? I mean, all of these things, everything was always of this mindset of like not having enough, and money being bad because it just wasn't enough to go around.
So survival and scarcity.
Yes, the scarcity mindset, it just constantly was just like it was never enough. That was something that I was in my heart and in just my being. I thought, this can't be it. And I thought, if at the very least what I could do is at least try by going to school, experiencing things that are new, that will hopefully unlock things or give me new insights. Because in my mind, the worst thing I could do was just sit back and be complacent. Like even just saying that word, like can't, like it's just not me. And as time and time went on, obviously I grew older, I saw more things. I graduated from college, 8 months pregnant of my daughter, right? And I remember that was like, oh my goodness, I'm now going to have a baby. And it was like, that was not part of the plan. And I remember being so scared. I remember crying. And I think I took 6 pregnancy tests because I was in denial, denial, denial. Because in my mind, I thought, this is just not what, because the stories I had heard growing up were, the minute you have a kid, your life is over. And I think back now because so many of my community were having kids at 16, 18. So it was never this like, oh, this beautiful thing, you're going to have a child. It was this like, ugh, you're going to have a kid. And I remember going home and telling my mom, Mom, I'm pregnant. And she was so excited. I think I was 23 at the time. And she was so excited. She's like, I'm going to have a grandbaby. And I remember started crying. I'm like, but this isn't okay, Mom. She's like, what do you mean? You're going to graduate from college. You have a great job. You have a car. You're in the process of buying a home. Like you're going to be just fine. And there she was again, reassuring me. She's like, no, no, no. Stop thinking that way. She goes, just keep going. And I had to tell you, I graduated with her 8 months pregnant, and a few months later she was born. And that was the universe sending me a sign because I didn't stop there. I went, got a master's degree, and then I went and got a second master's degree. And the joke in my family has always been for every degree I received, I had a baby. With my master's, the first one, I had my son Mauricio. And with my MBA, I had my son Mateo. And I could tell you that my husband's like, go get the doctor. Let's have a fourth. Hence in speed on this. I tell him all the time, that's our fourth baby. And speed on is our fourth baby.
There you go. Right. That's perfect. I hear when I listen to you that, because a lot of people will say, I can't go to school or I can't get another degree or I can't, even if they have the financial means or the way to get, scholarship support or whatever, they've got a story that it's too late, they're too old, they're too this, they're too that. Um, can you just speak to that for a moment?
Yeah, the education system is definitely not an easy one. And I can say, just given my years in public education specifically, and then going into higher education, there were many times where my educational spirit was crushed. And I can say that it's much easier to be able to walk away from something than to be able to face it head on and say, you know what? I need this and I'm going to get this no matter what. Versus that, well, if you don't want me here, then I don't need school or it's not for me. There's always something that makes it easier for someone just to say, not for me. I got something else going. I didn't have that luxury. Like I didn't have a safety net. I knew that if I didn't go to school, my future looked like the present day, which again, it wasn't miserable, but it wasn't in any way where I would be enabled enough to be able to give back in any way. It was about just kind of just having enough, having enough. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I want to have more to do more. And when I think about it from an educational perspective, that is the theme that I continue to see with so many in the community because I spend so much time talking to students and families that they have this safety net, and it may be their family themselves, or maybe having an opportunity to go work for a family business. I get that often, right? Or they've gotten married and had children, or I got to focus on that, and I constantly tell them like, you got to look beyond that. You got to look beyond. Nothing is forever. And Laura, you and I know that nothing is forever. Things change, people pass, experiences, change, companies will change hands. I mean, you just never know that. Wouldn't you want to have that safeguard? And I can tell you that for every person that I've had a conversation where they have this school isn't for me, once we've had those conversations to really look past their own being of like what this means for them, 9 times out of 10, there's this aha moment of, I never thought of it that way. And I think it's just a way of thinking. And in the world that we're living in now, everything is about instant gratification, about getting information easily. That why do I have to go to school? I can figure it out on my own, or I have this thing, or I can become a musician, or whatever it may be. You just fill in the blank. There's plenty. I could become a social media artist, but what they don't realize is that there are so many other people that have that same exact dream. So you're competing against hundreds and thousands, if not millions of people, and what's your safeguard? And so that's been my big thing. And that's what I continue to challenge people like, what is your safeguard? Like, go get your dream, go after that, but always have a plan B and a plan C. And for me, the plan B and plan C is getting skills. And the only way you can gain skills is by studying. And the only way that you can truly study is by going to school. So make school whatever you want it to be. And I think that's another piece that I've also learned that the system itself, the educational system has contributed to this. Because if we think back to being K through 12, the high school system specifically only focus on the 4-year degree. They have resources for the 4-year degree. They celebrate the A through G completion, which is the 4-year degree. And the reality is not everyone is going to be interested in going into this 4-year degree. So when people talk about school, the only impression and the only picture they have about school is you got to go to this place and do 4 years or 6 years or 8 years. When in reality, school is can be anything. It could be a 8-month certificate. It could be a 1-year certificate. It could be a 2-year AA. It could be whatever it may be. It could be building blocks for whatever you want to become longer term, but just to get you started. And I think that is why there's so many people that are like, school's not for me. I'm not made for school. It's because it's never been simplified, and education has never been talked about in a way of what it means for the person itself. It's always been this bigger picture that can feel daunting. And if you're in the system and the system spits you out, which it's more common than not, forget that. It's just not for me. I'm gonna go get to work. The minute they start to get to work, it's just easier to be in that role until you're 5 or 6 or 7 years in. And as most people then dread their jobs and they just don't like what they're doing. And that's where I also get on my big soapbox about it's not too late. You can go back to school. You're actually in a better position now, because if you're working at an organization, they actually might actually want you to go gain some new skills to help them in whatever their growth plan is. And just having those conversations with folks. And again, my husband tells me I see life in rosy glasses. I do not believe I do, but I do. I'm just optimistic. I'm like, there has to be a way, because that's the whole reason why we're on this earth, right? That's the universe.
The sun's coming up. We're chasing the magic. I'm diving in. Oh, I won't look back. It's a beautiful world. We're painting horizons. I'm coming alive with you by my side. With you, there's nothing we can't do. With you, it's true.
There's energy and it's flowing and moving. The minute you capture something and stop it, you can see things like it trembles and trembles. And I think that's why we're here, to just continue to grow and grow. And for me, education and going to school is the one place you can do that.
And it seems to me that a large part of your purpose is to overcome these obstacles, to be a pioneer in a way in your family and in your community, so that then you can turn around and give others that hand up, is what I'm hearing from you.
That is, one thing that I'm reading this book this weekend, this word came to me, or this thought came to me, that I'm on this mission to make my inner child proud. That young Nina that was there helping my mom and helping everyone proud, because I can tell you from the youngest memory that I have, it's always been about, what can I do? What can I learn to teach others? Always, always, whether it's giving them some tips, whether it's making it a little easier, whether it's removing roadblocks. And then I think back, and that's where I think about the universe and this energy back of like, yeah, I did. I've always been a teacher, right?
Yes.
Just a different form of
Yes.
like being a teacher. And that is absolutely, and it's not by accident. That's why I look back all the time of like all those moments. And I can think of a moment from every kind of age block where I can remember that I did something and then connected me to something else, that connected me to something else and connected me to something else. I mean, just you asking me that question, I think back to being 32 years old, working for a tech company where I was part of a leadership development program where they took 40 of us to basically walk alongside I don't know if golf, but the big tournament they have at Pebble Beach. I know it's a big, important golf tournament there. Before going to the golf game, they took us to lunch and they had us sit in a circle and they asked us all to share why we were there, why we thought we were chosen for this program. And I shared a story, a teacher that I had in second grade, Mrs. Clark, who was forever going to be my angel ever, where not only did she remind me about how smart I was, and it gave me every opportunity to learn. And I tell you, I was 7 years old. This is how the profound impact she had in my life, that every day in the morning I was there and I helped her clean the erase boards. At lunchtime, I was there because I wanted to learn more. Like, I was so hungry that she would sit there and continue to spend her time with me. So much so that she would make jobs for my mom to clean her house. She would create jobs for my dad to go clean the yard. And she would ask me, "So how's the family, honey?" And I had so much trust that I would say, "They're okay, but my dad, he can't find work." Or my mom was crying the other day because we didn't have enough for food. And I get emotional because she created those moments. And I remember telling that story. in that circle with this powerful C-suite executive who, who said to me, my dear, she did that because she knew if she invested in you, you invest in others. I didn't realize it until that moment. I thought, oh my gosh, you're so right. And so here I go, still going through all of these chapters. And that's the essence of what Inspirame is about. How do we have the opportunity to fill someone else's cup? Because we believe firmly that if you have the opportunity to inspire someone just a little bit, hence Inspirame, they'll take off. And when they need a little bit more guidance because they've hit a bump or someone's told them no, come back to Teco Guide, right? Because it's always in your pocket. We're always there. Just kind of hit that button and get a little bit more to keep you going. It's so powerful that it brings these tears of joy, because it's like, I feel blessed about being able to be in this position, to be able to be so aware of the opportunity I had to continue to contribute, which is why I'm constantly going. So I'm like, okay, we're only here for an immense amount of time. And I really do believe that I have something to give, or more to give.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Such a beautiful story, and the story of Mrs. Clark. And it makes me think how we have those memories of the people. For me, it was Mrs. Torrey. We have those memories of people in our lives who've impacted us. And yet I'm sure there are people who have Maria Medrano stories as well of the people that you've impacted. And so it just continues as a cycle. If we're giving back and we're really doing our own work on ourselves, is what I hear you also saying. Like, your commitment is not just to excel and succeed, but you're also continually, from how I know you, developing yourself, listening to feedback, open to feedback. Even if you don't always agree with what people have to say, you take everything to heart, and you're wanting to evolve yourself as a human as much as what you're doing on the outside in the world. That's my sense of you.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I am so committed to my personal growth. And I think it's been since my mom's passing, that was very unexpected 3.5 years ago. Again, by that point in my life, I, have had the tech roles. I had traveled the world, had the privilege of being able to take my mom and my dad with me on a few trips. I took my mom to New York City. I took her to Washington, D.C. I took her with me to a conference. I took her to Disney World. I did so many things. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, I just felt so much gratitude. Like, I've always been very grateful for everything. I can be grouchy at times, but that doesn't mean I'm not grateful. You know what I mean? Like, I have my moments, my kids will tell me, and my husband, but I do mean well. That's what I tell them. I know that my kids are like, you're too much, mom, you're too much. And I'm like, but I'm just trying. I'm trying to do my part. But since losing my mom and having her take her last breath in my home during this a special moment, like, even that, Laura, and I've shared that story with you, like, that was not by accident, and the timing and the dates. And I'm thinking, whoa, universe, like, this is so perfectly planned that even if I try to make things up, I just can't, right? And so when she took her last breath, it was the first time that I realized how stronger of a woman my mom was, and I had no clue that she was. And let me say that again. How strong of a woman she was that I had no clue she was, because my mom loved me so much and made me feel like I could conquer the world. And she never had her mom. And I thought, that kink and that pain that I had in my heart, that moment, that how am I ever going to be able to walk this earth without her? Because she was just that consistent thing. And she came into my mind saying, don't you go sitting down. You know what you have to do. And The first night I dreamt, she was in my dream telling me that.
Oh my
You got to
goodness.
do this. You got to do the same thing that she would do when I was a kid. And it was
Mm.
because I knew she loved me and she wanted to prepare me. And so I mention that because since then, I've been that whole like self reflection of like my personal growth, feedback. Like, what can I do that's different? Because my mom was my guiding campus on while she was on this earth. She was constantly like giving me feedback, like constantly. And I felt the instant void. And I thought, what can I do to fill that void? Because I can't get out too far off from the center. You know what I mean? This world can influence you in ways that they want you to think about the material things. They want you to think about the high positions, the titles, the fashion, the all the things that people get distracted with. And I thought, I can't, like I can't do that. I owe it to my kids, I owe it to my husband, I owe it to my dad, to my brothers, and more importantly, I owe it to my mom. And I realize I owe it to myself. And so there is this heightened focus there to just figure it out, Laura. It's really every single day, like just figure it out
So you feel your mom is still present with you in a different form from what I'm hearing you say.
every day. Every day. There is this connectiveness that it amazes me because I can tell you, I could never, ever, ever have imagined a day, a world, an hour, a minute without my mom on this earth. Like in my mind, we're going to be little old ladies together, traveling the world, going to the supermarkets. I would tell her, like, we're going to be fighting with each other. We're going to be little old ladies just fighting because that was one thing. We were very opposite, very, very opposite, but we balanced each other. And I feel that with me. Like, for as much as we were such a unit and such a connected force, I miss her, but the missing of her is it's through love. I can't explain it, but it's through love. It's not through this crying and oh, I'm going to sit here and the world's going to end. It's like no, like what are we going to do? And keeping her with me because her struggles, her story, her journey is all of that is the only reason I'm even where I am. Because without that, I know for sure it just wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't happen.
And so Inspirame is also embodying her in you now.
Absolutely. Even more so. Even more so that reinforcement, that the reinforcement, but then the honest truth. And what do I mean by that? Like within our Inspirame, we built an app, which is Deco Guide. And that app is basically your personal guide to your future. And so you create a profile, you answer a few questions, we'll know who you are in regards to are you a current student, a prospective student, or were you a student? Because there's many people like that. And then asking a few questions that once you tell us the truth, like we're going to tell you exactly how you can fix said thing if it's broken, or how you can continue to go on your path. And it's no different than what I had in my back pocket all the time with my mom being there. That helps us continue to bring this to life because it makes a huge difference. It's not lost on me the privilege that I had of growing up in a home that was filled with love, not filled with a lot of material things, but filled with immense love and an immense amount of faith and spirituality that I can't let go to waste. I will say, like it's too important to not pass it along and let others know how sweet life can be.
El río fluye, nunca solo está. El río fluye, nunca solo está.
I feel like when I listen to your story, I hear this. You kept saying, like, extending beyond what I know to be possible. And I feel like you're giving people a picture of that who may not be surrounded of a picture of that. I know that my own parents were the first in their families also to graduate college, and they both went on to get PhDs. And I was telling my father recently, thanks to him getting a job at Syracuse University as a professor, between children, stepchildren, and grandchildren, maybe 10 people have graduated from college, including my mom. It's such a generational game changer. And I think some people take going to college for granted, or even rebuffing college now, saying like, oh, I'm just, it's AI. We don't need college anymore. I think people don't realize the legacy and the game changing impact that it can have generationally on a family. And what I hear with you is sometimes if we don't even know what's possible or how that works, or how do I navigate the system because no one around me has navigated that system, I feel like that's what you're trying to do with this app and with your work, is both give a support system of people who've been there and done that, and also give them a sense of what is possible.
Absolutely. And doing that even as young as possible, which for us, it's going down to the high school level, where so many times, like I said, those educational spirits are crushed because schools are only talking to a said student that is on a said path. But there's so many other paths. And I think that's the big thing that I want somebody to know. Like, there's so many there. And let's show you what they are. And then once we show you what they are, you make the informed decision that's right for you. And then we'll guide you. We'll guide you by telling you what classes to take, and just being additional reinforcement so that like I tell so many when I have conversations in our community, folks would say, "Hey, kids, you better go to college. You need to go to college." And I look back now and I'm like, but no one showed us how. Like, no one would say like, "Well, how do you go to college?" It was just like, "Okay, we'll go to college," because we didn't even know what college meant. Like, it was just a word. And so that's one thing that I tell folks. I want to have that tagline of like, someone's telling you to college but don't know how. Let that go guide. Let that go guide you. Or I want billboards that say, "Got college credits, don't know what they're worth." Let that go guide tell you. How many people are walking around with, "I went to that college for one semester, took 3 classes, failed two, but I did one and went really, really well." That's currency in your pocket. And so yeah, it's a big dream, a big lofty goal, but we're on that one step at a path for sure.
And what is that goal? What is your vision? If you had a magic wand and anything were possible, what would you want to see in the world?
Oh, in the world, I would love us to be fully connected from an educational perspective. What does that mean? Is if we can just look at California, imagine anyone sitting across this beautiful state being able to get on Deco Guide and be able to explore all of the countless pathways that exist. And those pathways obviously lead to employment. So it's really seeing, stories about people that are in certain roles so that people can understand and be excited about, I want to be able to do that role. And if you touch that role, then we show you where you can get those skills to get that role locally at the community college, wherever it is that you're interested in going. Because you may be exploring this in Vallejo, California, but you have dreams of going to San Diego, California. You would be able to vision that dream and actually have the campus of knowing what classes to take. And if you scale that out, we should be able to do that across this beautiful nation. And if you scale it out even further, the same thing is true with so many students that are in our international that want to come in, and study here in the US. But there's so many students here that want to study around the world, that I would love Deco Guide to be able to facilitate the ability to know the paths that exist across higher education. And that higher education be demystified, that it's not just the Ivy League schools, just the going to the university, but that higher education is any skill that's obtained that allows you to get onto your path.
Fantastic. I love that vision. Any final thoughts on your path, your journey, what you feel guided by in your life now and going forward?
I'm on this path that I think is the right path on the important aspect of education. And so for me, right now, I'm at that moment in my life where I'm really focused on maintaining that balance that I mentioned that I've had guiding me to this point, because I do feel the work and the responsibility getting bigger, if that makes any sense. Like it feels very big, but I'm also really excited that I'm not afraid in any way, but I'm also don't want to be ignorant or closed-minded to the fact that this is a very, very big vision and goal that I have. Right now, what I'm really, really focused on is just keeping myself centered in a way that allows me to be able to deliver there, where I can deliver for my day job, as an executive at a big tech company, that I can deliver at Inspirame, and that I can deliver for the community. Many who don't even know that we're working so hard to be there for them. If that makes any sense. And so that is where I'm at. And I can tell you that even this last week, I met with a individual who was leading a university. That the university isn't a traditional university. This university works with the students that are considered the most dangerous in Sacramento, that have GPAs that range from zero point 0 to 0.98, many of which have ankle bracelets when they're in class, homeless, parents are in prison, parents are trafficked. And they invited me to their graduation last week. This is so interesting. I'm telling you this story, Laura, because now it connects back to what we just talked about. Talk about the universe, right? Because they invited me to the graduation. We're sitting in the graduation.
Amazing.
Passion and the purpose of the folks that are there teaching these students, you cannot negate their purpose, like their energy. It's like, oh my goodness, like this is my jam, right? It's 250 students that were graduating that night. They walk across the stage. And as they're walking across the stage, they're talking about their graduation and what they've overcome. And they talk about what their next plan is. Now, for as excited as I was about these 250 and being there, I'm like, yes. Yeah, like many of these were the first in their families to graduate high school. The schools that we're going to next were schools that I consider predatory schools. What I know is that charges $60,000 a year for the same program that is offered at American River College for zero. And so all of these kids are going to go to that path. And that path, you sign financial aid, those schools have a 90% dropout. So when those kids do not make it through that program because of the sheer pressure, these students are going to be owing the federal government because they didn't take the loan out with the school, they took the loan out with the federal government. So the amount of debt and the additional heavy backpack these students will have to go there, of course they're going to drop out. So what does Maria do? I reach out right away and I'm like, we have to have a conversation. Like I have to tell you what's happening on this side, that when you prepare them to walk that stage and get their GED, you're now shepherding them into these predatory schools. The principal of the school sunk in his seat and said, I had no clue. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you for first coming to the graduation. Thank you for making the time to share this with us. How do we partner? And so we are literally working on grants this week, justice involved grants to be able to produce the number of youth that go to prison through education. And we're going to support the high school completion, but it's going to be accelerated now and scaled through Teco Guide, who's going to teach these students the next path. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, Laura, of like where I'm focused, like just listening to those signs. Like it's not by accident that I got the invitation. And oh, by the way, I was only invited there because the first nonprofit that we worked with 2.5 years ago, that we had a tiny, tiny little nonprofit. The person leading that nonprofit went to work for this university, and they invited us because they knew what we did with the community and how we could have an impact here. So that's what I say, that for anything that we do in our life, it's so important to be so intentional with how you interact with individuals, how you treat people, because we're just energy flowing here temporarily. And I mean, it's not, I don't know. I feel very blessed about being able to be in the position that I am now, leading this work that I know is not easy, but it's super important. But I feel so prepared from all aspects of my life, from where I was born to how I was raised to where I went to school to the challenges and struggles that I had that have taught me everything through adulthood. I mean, I've learned tons of lessons, even in the corporate space, that have served me to getting to meet you, Laura, and having our conversations to having this conversation today. I mean, it's perfect.
It's a great summary of how all of our experience lead us to this moment and prepare us for this moment that we're in right now, which is such a crucial time. I'm so grateful for your time today and thank you for spending it with us. We can reach you at Inspirame. What's the web address?
You can reach us at inspirame.com. And if you are on social media with Teco Guide, which is TECOGUIDE, you can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, because we're there to meet the youth, because that's where they are, and on YouTube. Would love for you to follow us. My partner in life and in Inspirame is Mauricio, and he's Professor G, and he is the face. He is the magic of Inspirame, of Teco Guide. He is Teco Guide. And he brings a wisdom beyond that really gets people to really stop and listen for a moment, to get inspired, to jump right back in. So I hope that you'll listen, but more importantly, that you follow us and reach out if we can be of any support.
Thank you, Maria, so much for being with us today. And please follow us on Surrendering to the Signs. For hearing more, we'll put the links down below. And thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Laura.